Still morning.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's Office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org, call 313-388-9799, or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan. We have a lot to talk about this week. We do not have Barb Ingalls with us today. The official story is that she's up north and can't be joining us. The unofficial story is that she protested when we told her that there would be no profanity on the show today. So take from that what you will. But, of course, we've got a great lineup. As always, we have attorneys Joel Sklar and attorney Bill Seikaly. We have Detroit Free Press investigative columnist ML Elrick. And, of course, we have Deadline Detroit co-founder Allan Lengel. I think if we all freeze and take a selfie, we can have 5 mugshots to go along with what we've got in Fulton County, because I think that's turning into something in vogue, and maybe we can get coffee mugs. There you go.
Oh, that's the best. That is the best.
So let's start with that. Former President Donald Trump was arrested and booked for the 4th time down in Fulton County, Georgia yesterday, 7:30 evening, just right for primetime viewing, much to the glory and jubilation at CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News and anybody else. And you saw that now we have, out of the 4 cases, his first mugshot. We also found out that the man keeps lying, that even at his booking, he put down his weight as 215 pounds. Not kilos, but which I think would be perhaps closer to the truth, but 215 pounds. John Cusack, the actor, put on Twitter that he's, or X, that he's 6'2" and 220. So no way is the Donald only 215. What did you think about the coverage yesterday regarding Trump coming in on Trump Force One, having his motorcade going through southern Atlanta, making his way to Fulton County, getting booked, and then being shown going back to said airport 30 minutes later to fly back to New Jersey?
A narcissist dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every little step is like, oh my God, I'm landing. I'm driving to the airport. I'm leaving the Fulton County jail. It was a little much.
You know, I have to tell you, it had all the excitement to me of the Bronco chase in the OJ case. Yeah. My wife was a little obsessed with making sure that she saw his mugshot immediately, so she was watching it. And I kept on coming in and out, and I looked at her and I said, do you remember the Bronco chase in the OJ case? Is this any different? I mean, we know where he's going. It's not like he's going fast, and we know what's going. I mean, it seemed ridiculous to me. I'm trying to figure out why it was on, but I'm not in charge.
A lot of people, it draws eyes. But
I think we have to do something to try and to get him off the air.
Yeah, I agree.
But But didn't we try that, Bill? Didn't we kill Prigozhin? I mean, it seemed as though that was really the
what is
way
this
that
we
was
stuff,
going.
Kimosabe?
Well,
You know, my view of that is if you try to have a coup against Putin, you probably ought to anticipate this is what's going to happen.
Well, it's like the Lawrence Fishburne and I think John Wick too. If you're going to kill the king, come to the quick. You better get him, and if you don't get him, he's going to get you, and that's exactly what happened. Everybody knew that Prigozhin, I think, suspected he was going to get killed like this. God only knows. I'm assuming he is dead. I don't know if there's ever been real confirmation that he's actually gone. But assuming that he is, who saw this coming? I mean, it was the other.
ML, what do you think? Do you think Prigozhin's gone, or are we going to see him at a Burger King in Kalamazoo next month?
I don't know why anybody boards any form of transportation that's within gunshot of Putin. I thought this guy was crazy, but I didn't think he was stupid. I mean, I figured he'd get poked by an umbrella somewhere and that would be it. But they made a nice big show of it, which I wouldn't say that the world's worse off without him, but that's what happens when you go Aeroflot.
It was pretty grim. Anyway, getting back to Trump's arrest, he made a statement again, seemingly using the same talking points. They're the ones interfering with the election. They're the ones that are interfering with my rights to go ahead and protest a flawed and rigged election. How much shelf life do you think this is going to have? I mean, are there any signs of wear and tear?
I think things just got better for Trump in Georgia. Now he only needs one vote. He's just got to find one vote on that jury, and he wins.
Right.
Plus, I also heard he spent $20,000 in his charity money to buy the portrait.
Yeah, that's, by the way, not quite true. I mean, he gets one vote to get a hung jury. He needs a unanimous panel to get acquitted. I think that the odds of acquittal in this case are very slim. And I'm the last guy. I've been through too many trials. I'm the last guy to predict the result of any trial.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
Right.
Well, I think Trump would be happy to have a jury say he's hung.
Actually, I know some people who would be happy to hang him, but
because he's got those small hands.
Yeah,
we have a little video of his interview with Tucker Carlson, which was put up by the Lincoln Project, so they try to have a little fun with it.
Indicted, every week and stay cheerful.
Hillary Clinton goes crazy every time she talks. She says, he's not the president. Jimmy Carter said, he's not the president. Well, I am the president.
Do you think we're moving towards civil war?
January 6th was a very interesting day because they don't report it properly. There was love in that. There was love and unity.
Jesus.
Two words that aren't heard around Mar-a-Lago these days, but okay.
Love and unity, including the guys with the Camp Auschwitz sweatshirts and the other folks who were chanting the N-word to some of the black officers. That's his idea of love and unity.
Well, it is. I think that's accurate, Alan. It is his idea of love and unity. It's love and unity of what is, I think, becomes the question. But interesting, according to a news report I read this morning, Trump no longer owns Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah,
he transferred it to a shell corporation owned by
Don Jr.
His son. I find it very interesting. He decided to do it the day he was being arraigned.
Wow.
This is called transferring your assets to protect them.
Yeah. Also, perhaps a fraudulent conveyance.
But
I don't know much about Florida. Yeah, I don't know much about Florida beyond the mouse. But I thought that Florida was a haven when it came to your primary residence from any kind of forfeiture in case you suffer like a civil or a criminal penalty.
And what is his primary residence?
I thought he was going to claim Mar-a-Lago because it's not Bedminster, but
I'm not sure that he fits the definition of primary residence in And I'm not sure that Mar-a-Lago is more valuable than a number of his other assets, including his home in Trump Towers.
I think he picks Mar-a-Lago, Florida, because that's the only state that he can win of the other. He can't win in New Jersey. He can't win in New York. So he's humiliated that he gets crushed in those places. So he goes to Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, but being able to declare Florida as your primary residence for purposes of voting is different than declaring it your primary residence as to your primary home.
So speaking of Mar-a-Lago, there was a witness who apparently has recanted his prior testimony and is now implicating Trump and others in erasing security camera footage. It's remarkable what you can do when you no longer are represented by a lawyer that has been paid for by Donald Trump.
Yes, a good point. Yeah,
is anybody surprised by
that? The lawyers should weigh in on this.
I got kicked off, so tell me, apologize. I was out for the last 30 seconds. What was the issue?
No problem. Mar-a-Lago, speaking of which, a witness down there has recanted his prior testimony, is now implicating Trump and others in erasing security camera footage. This, of course, dealing with the documents case and showing what happens when you dump representation by a Trump lawyer for independent counsel.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Walt Nauta follows the same route, gets his own counsel, protects himself as opposed to Trump. These guys.
This is appointed counsel. He finally ended up. He used to be represented by attorneys paid for by Trump.
Right.
He got rid of them, and he was appointed counsel. And after the appointed counsel, he changed his position, which creates for me a real ethical dilemma. What should happen to the attorneys who are giving him the advice that they gave him to lie or allowed him to lie? I don't know the backstory. Maybe he didn't say anything to them. Maybe he didn't tell them the truth. But if those attorneys were involved in that fraud, there's some licenses that could be lost.
It wasn't that.
Well, Bill,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please, Joel.
No, there was. I remember there was a witness who testified at the January 6 hearings. I thought her last name was Hutchinson. I could be wrong, or Hutchins. And she had also switched lawyers. The first lawyer, kind of a Trump lawyer, had told her certain things like "forget everything, you don't know shit." I'm doing that for Miss Angles, so she's not here. Getting a lawyer who's really going to look for your interests is crucial. The ethical violations, I think, are in all these relationships have to be explored. You can't have Trump paying for your defense and expect you to have an independent defense that looks after you. That's absurd. And Trump is paying for these lawyers to control the lawyers and the outcome. That's not how it's supposed to work. So my hope is that other witnesses, I'm sure that I hope to God they're talking to other people so they can also cut their own deals to soften their fall because they're falling.
As one of our viewers confirms for you, Joel, yes, it was Cassidy Hutchinson who testified at Congress. So you've got that. Well, I assume, Bill, you mean those lawyers that weren't already indicted, because thus far in Fulton County, we've got a Hollywood Squares matrix of mugshots of people who were indicted. The only person missing is Paul Lind and maybe Nipsey Russell. But the idea that you've got all of these people and interesting legal maneuvering. You've got the situation, of course, of Cheeseborough, who is trying to expedite the case, invoking his right to a speedy trial. And like any good poker match, we have Fannie Wilson, the Fulton County DA, who said, okay, you want an early date? How about October the 23rd? Which then suggests that others could be operating on that same timetable. At the same time, we have former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who's, from what all accounts say, begging to have the case moved to federal court by claiming that as a federal official, he was within his authority and within the scope and scale of his job duties to try to interfere with an election.
Yeah, that's a losing argument.
Yeah. I mean, you summarized it. I'd be shocked if the motion to transfer was granted. It certainly shouldn't be, mainly because if you look at the indictment, they're very, very careful to plead in the indictment that he was acting outside the scope of his position. I find it clearly, if he was acting within the scope of his position, it would be a defense. He'd have qualified immunity. He would only have to prove that he was acting in good faith. I question that too. But if that's true, I want you to think about what that defense would mean. That would mean that Trump would also have a defense to say, as president of the United States, I have an absolute right to do anything I can to win the election, including interfering. That's just part of my constitutional rights, my second Article 2 powers. Let's throw the Constitution out the window if we accept that.
Right.
Well, and you know how, given how conservatives love unenumerated rights in the Constitution and things that are written in, let's see how that goes. ML, I got to ask you the question. Given the music aficionado that you are, I'm going to go ahead and read 4 lines and see who I'm talking about here. Stop your messing around. No, let me get him back. Stop your messing around. Better think of your future. Time you straighten right out. Creating problems in town.
Stop your messing around.
A little ska.
Ska there.
Yeah. What's the title of the song?
Oh, God. Stop your messing.
Did I mention I had COVID? It's really affected my recall of musical tunes.
Okay.
But I know the tune you're thinking of.
Okay. A message to you, Rudy.
That's right.
Yes.
About you,
former America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, also making a cameo in Borat 2, was arrested and, of course, booked and charged in Fulton County, along with Sidney Powell, a rather ebullient Jenna Lewis, according to her mugshot, and several others. It's remarkable because, again, we're talking about a fairly short period of time, remembering where Rudy Giuliani once was in the American imagination, someone who was actually a candidate for president himself. And here we see the antithesis of that within a generation, going from the cover of Time magazine to, well, probably the cover of Time magazine again for different reasons. What happened, Rudy, that the Specials wrote a song about you 40 years ago?
Yeah, well, he's definitely going to be on the cover of Doing Time magazine, because I don't see how he escapes some sort of punishment in any one of the jurisdictions where he's facing charges.
That was Rudy from the movie, where he said he was just adjusting his pants.
That's how we all do it. Come on.
I thought he wore Sansa belt.
Yeah, he just adjusted. He just went into the bedroom. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but I think it's Borat's daughter, Sacha Baron Cohen's daughter, is actually pretending to be a foreign journalist, and she says, "Come on in the bedroom for a drink." And so before you know it, I don't know how this happens, but in the course of getting a drink, he's adjusting his pants.
Yeah, a little bit disturbing, but you know, it's like a series of choices for Rudy, man. It's greed. It's perhaps this has been his character all along. It's the need to be relevant, a need to be important, a need to still be America's mayor, even though that's long gone. Whatever pathology is driving this guy, is not going to stop, and he's going to go down like this. I heard him say in some interview that he's still the same Rudy Giuliani, and that's probably true. He probably is the same Rudy Giuliani. He may have always been a very bad man.
Yeah, I think that you saw. I think you saw that. Maybe did you watch the CNN special?
Yeah,
on Rudy. I hate to say this, but I've come to believe that Rudy has always been Rudy,
right,
and that the problem with Giuliani is that he may well be just amoral, and that his need has been to chase fame.
Right.
And when chasing criminals under the RICO statute could bring him fame, he chased criminals. And when, being a hero during 9/11 worked, he did that. But he's always wanted to be the center of attention. That is the predominant, in my opinion, the predominant focus of his entire career. And, if you chase fame, you're going to collapse as a result of it too.
He may have like an ego similar to Trump's, where he thinks he can do no wrong, or he can survive any allegation, that somehow he's Teflon. And that's the beauty of the reality of the judicial system, if it works the right way, is that you're not untouchable, you're not that slippery. When the rules of evidence come into play, you're on your own. But he's revealed what he is. People become what they are. They manifest themselves. That's his essence. His essence is, I think, not a good thing. And what he ever did that was good in the 80s and, whatever, great. But again, it was for his own narcissistic, egotistical reasons. It really wasn't for the public good. It was really for Rudy, is what I'm saying.
I was going to say, sometimes these prosecutors are around criminals so much, there's sort of an envy about that. And sort of, when I worked at the Detroit News and I covered the federal courthouse, we'd sometimes stand outside the snack shop and some of the prosecutors would be hanging out and they would be going, look, if I was going to be a criminal, I'd do like 1 load of kilos, 15 kilos of coke, and that would be it. So everyone has the fantasies, but I think Rudy sort of liked the idea of being a criminal, and he's hooked on to Trump, who's like a criminal, and he was with Bernie Kerik, who ended up going to prison. He seems to, the
birds of a feather.
Yeah.
But you see, you guys still seem to imply that they have some conception of right and wrong. I come to believe that both Trump and Giuliani just, if I do it, it can't be wrong. And that they're amoral. I mean, they're sociopaths at some level because they just don't see what they're doing. I'm convinced, hook Trump up to a lie detector. He will pass on the question, have you done anything wrong?
Yes.
Do you tell the truth? I think he'd say yes, and he'd pass.
The George Costanza principle.
Right, it's George Costanza. That's exactly it. If you believe it's true, it is.
So this is all very fascinating, but I have a much simpler explanation for what happened to Rudy Giuliani, and I call it the Samson effect. Once he cut the comb over, he went nuts. He needed to keep that tarp over the field, and no rain would have fallen on that very fractured brain.
So that's a bit different from the syphilis explanation.
You know what's
I can't rule that out either.
Okay.
Is that Rudy,
a little problem here?
Is his law license. I'm a lawyer. I'm advocating, and there are limits to that. And every time I hear Rudy justify what he's done, he said you're criminalizing the practice of law, which is bullshit. He's criminalizing the practice of law by doing what he's doing. And so I keep hearing that refrain from the lawyers. We're just doing our job. Well, it's like the Nazi guards, you're not just doing your job. You're perpetuating a fraud knowingly because it's going to benefit you. So you hope. And that's what I see going on, man. So,
and this stuff, it's really not that complicated. I've confronted these issues 4 or 5 times in my career where I give advice to clients. They want to go do something that's questionable. You fire the client. You very quietly withdraw and you move on and you try not to harm the client, but you simply don't sanction that kind of behavior. And I'd be surprised if most attorneys any attorney would tell me, oh, I've never come close to facing one of these issues. There is an image out there of lawyers that, we lie for a living. If you're good at what you do, you don't need to.
Right.
The law of the facts, or you pound on your opponent kind of thing. But you're an advocate. You don't create facts, and you don't encourage people to lie because it will almost always come back to bite you in the ass.
You don't perpetuate a fraud. You can't perpetuate a crime. Right. That's not what we do.
But okay, you're talking about Giuliani being, a lawyer. I get it. There's Jenna Lewis, who's a lawyer, and we talked about her sort of academic pedigree and coming up. Here you've got Giuliani, who not only was a successful prosecutor, Lengel, if he would have just reached into the drawer and found the needle-nose pliers next to the Gideon's Bible, all of this would have been solved in him getting the zipper fixed. But anyways, but the idea that you would think that someone like Giuliani wouldn't get caught up in the cult of Trump. I mean, this isn't like, me believing every time I go to Hooters, the waitress saying, "Oh my God, you're my favorite customer." And thinking, "Oh, she likes me. She really likes me." By the way, that's semi-autobiographical. But the idea that shouldn't these people know better? I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I just don't understand how people could fall for this guy.
Isn't Rudy in a desperate situation economically? I mean, according to Maggie Haberman, he's got nothing and he's broke, and desperate people make desperate decisions to get themselves in more desperate situations. Rudy needs money. Rudy's got nothing. He's selling his apartment. This is greed. This is his need to get some cash. And I still think he's banking on Trump, who's never going to pay him a dime, paying him a dime, and covering his legal defense. And that appears not to be happening.
He made, I think it was $5 million in the 2.5 years after Trump was president. If he doesn't have a dime, it's because he can't stop spending money.
Well, he also got divorced, right? This is his third divorce. The guy apparently footed his own bill when he went every place, from what I can say. I mean, it's insane. But he's begging for Trump to take care of him, and Trump ain't going to take care of him. They're going to take care of Trump.
The other thing is, I see Giuliani at a lot of these Republican Party events in Michigan, and wherever he shows up, he has star power, and people flock to him. They encircle him. I was at Trump's appearance in Novi, and one of my colleagues said, "Is Rudy still here?" And I said, "Well, let me go take a look." And there was such a throng around him that I had to hold my phone up all the way in the air just to get a picture of him in the middle of this miasma of fabulists. And I think he feeds on that. I think he's ego-driven. I think the money is a part of it too. But I think this is one of these things that he just, when it seems like people don't like you or you're in trouble, people naturally gravitate toward a place of comfort. And to him, it's these women in tight red dresses and these guys with somewhat severe haircuts who surround him and tell him that he is, in fact, wonderful, when we have a multitude of evidence that that's just not the case.
I love appearing on this show. I love joining you, but Alan, I've got an assignment or a suggestion for you.
Yeah.
Get rid of one or two of the lawyers that show up here and get a psychologist on, because I think that he asked the right question earlier when he said, maybe we need a psychologist to explain.
Joel is a psychologist.
Who is?
Well, this guy's got a pathology. What are you going to do? Pathology is pathology. I'll just tell you, it gets worse as you get older. It compounds as you grow older. Your pathology doesn't leave you. It worsens over time, is the reality. And that's what we're saying. These are aged men. Fucking Giuliani's 79, right? He's in his late 70s. You got, Trump.
Can we not refer to people in their 70s as ancient, please?
Well, I'm 64. I'm right around the corner. I apologize, but these are men, who are mature, who are seasoned, and they certainly know better.
Highly desirable, wise
is what drives Trump. That just drives his mugshot. Is that crazy pathology? He's looking defiant and devilish. I don't understand that one, but that's pathology. Trump is theater, right? He's all theater, and this is all the theater. But it's his pathology that he is the star in his own fucking movie.
While we're compiling a high holidays wish list, anyone know a good T-shirt maker so that we can get Alan's picture of Giuliani put on T-shirts, so the next time he comes into town, we can all greet him in the proper way?
Saeed, could you do me a favor? Could you take control over the pictures?
I've got no control. Hands above deck.
Yeah. People already run when I enter a room. If I was wearing a T-shirt, I don't even think I could get my car parked by the valet.
Yeah, listen,
Well-
but I think that the better question, and the question I'm far, far more concerned about, is why does Trump have such control over 40% of this country? Why do so many people still support him? And that's a far more interesting and concerning question for me than anything about Trump. I find Trump to be a bore. He's boorish. He has no credibility in my mind. The only time he lies is when his lips move. And so I don't really have much need to ask questions about Trump. I do have a serious need to ask why so many people are still supporting him. Why the majority of Republicans say, even if he got convicted, we would want him to be our nominee.
Right.
That is a serious question for us.
Including, Bill, all but 2 of the 8 people who were at the GOP
Here's
debate.
the bottom line. Someone's got to stop normalizing this conduct. Okay? Now, whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States.
And yet that guy raised his hand when he said, would you support? Now I was looking around to see what other people were doing.
He explained He did explain. He said, no, he goes, I was just going, no, I don't think he was. There's no way.
I think Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson were the only 2 of the 8 who didn't raise their hands. Haley couldn't wait to raise her hand.
And Rashid couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
So on the top, I mean, when his hand went up, I thought he was a little bit timid. I thought it was a little bit late with the Pence's hand raise.
And Pence was looking around to see who else raised that.
Yeah, it was like the kid in class, I guess. It was
ridiculous. On Wednesday night, I mean, for those of you who didn't have the good luck of having your power go out and had to watch it, what was your assessment?
Can we play a little video first?
Sure.
I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for.
Going back and forth, being childish is not helpful to the American people to decide on the next leader of our country.
This is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
But the candidate drawing the most attention and criticism, Vivek Ramaswamy, the 38-year-old entrepreneur and fierce defender of Trump, recently seeing a rise in the polls.
I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Well, let me explain it to you. Vivek, if I can. I'll go slower this time. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience.
It was Ramaswamy's first debate.
You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what?
It shows.
Oh, a cat fight between 2 Indians. Never seen that before.
I find this guy to be fascinating, Ramaswamy, but in looking at what could be his motivation, it seems to me that the real battle here is to become the new leader of the Trump movement. And I think that he's trying to vie for the vice presidential nomination so that he can take over the Trump movement and lead it. I don't know that it'll work, but if you watch the clips, he so panders to Trump that you got to wonder, does he really plan on trying to defeat him in the primaries?
I think, it's interesting. Some of these business people step up. Trump, we've seen Rick Snyder, and they're like, I'm a business person. I know how to run things. And people are like, yeah, he's rich. He's successful. He knows. And some of them ended up being not very good candidates or people serving. I mean, Rick Snyder in the end was sort of a disaster. Trump, depending on who you're talking to, was a disaster. Rick Snyder used to refer to the citizens as customers. It's and here's this guy. I mean, if you really listen to what he's saying, I mean, he's a great speaker. He's very quick on his feet. He's very smooth, but he's crazy. He's just got his things, climate. He goes climate change. He goes a hoax. Just put the money here. It's all about. I'm a businessman. I know what I'm talking about. It's scary.
I want to be the first to raise this issue. Has anybody seen his birth certificate? I'm sorry.
Well, the fact that he named Trump the greatest president of the 21st century was troubling enough. To which Trump then tweeted, he says, "This is my guy." In any other context, Trump would have called up a former senator from Virginia, George Allen, and said, "Yeah, what's that macaca thing again?"
Right. Yeah.
But so you've got him, as I think Bill, you rightly said, he's vying for certainly a place on the ticket. But what about the ideas you said that he wants to be the Trump guy in the GOP? What about Josh Hawley? What about Ted Cruz? I mean, there's a lot of people at the beauty pageant who kind of want that position.
He's a more likable figure, I think. I mean, Ted Cruz is not a likable person, even among colleagues, even among Republican colleagues. I don't think anybody cares for him. This guy has a charm. You can see when people are taking shots at him, he kind of laughs it off and rolls with it. But
he reminds me of Christopher Walken in A View to a Kill. That kind of psychopathic, laughing at everything that Roger Moore throws his way as being a genetic freak. And
he's hot for May Day.
He's hot for May. Oh, dang. Well played, sir.
Well, I'm trying to catch up on that specials track that I squiffed. But this is the thing that I didn't watch much of the debate. This is one of the things that I want to know when somebody's going to say, if you really think Trump is so great, why are you running against him? Why are you running for president? Get the hell out of the way. At least Hawley and Cruz are smart enough to know that they need to step aside because you're not going to survive against Trump. And if you go up against Trump, even I think if you ape him or you pay homage to him, people are still going to hold that against you.
If it wasn't for Pence's religious sensitivities, I expected him to say, well, if you love him so much, why don't you marry him? But I guess that's not going to happen. So who do you think won the debate?
You know what? It's
Biden won the debate. Who do I think won the debate? I mean, those are two very different questions.
You can answer both questions, Bill.
Well, I think Ramaswamy clearly won it in terms of the majority of Republicans because he was the Trump stand-in, and only because he was the Trump stand-in. Notice that Ann, one of the viewers, made a comment about you can't see Trump voters voting for a minority. And I think that that's relevant in terms of who actually won the debate. I think the New York Times columnist gave a 0 to 10 on all the candidates, and I think Nikki Haley got the highest with a 6.5. I thought they overrated her. I think that these people were awful. I think they are awful. I think the fact that they say that they would support a convicted felon as a nominee for president says all I need to know about every one of those candidates.
There's not a lot of spine there, but it's interesting. If you were talking about the general election, I think Nikki Haley did the best of anyone on that stage in terms of appealing to independents, even some disenchanted.
Pretty low bar, Alan. Pretty low bar.
Yes. I think Chris Christie was the only one really punching truly at. I mean, Asa Hutchinson a little bit, but Chris Christie. I'm trying to figure out where he's. I mean, he's not getting a lot of traction there, but he's the only one really just punching away at Trump.
But he's doing well in New Hampshire, Alan. Do you think that he's seeding Iowa, and I think he's looking to the East Coast and trying to build up momentum there? Tim Scott seemed to perform in a mediocre way. Bill, I think you're being a little bit too generous here. We are grading on a curve. And so as a result of that, I think that's how perhaps Nikki Haley was viewed as victorious. But what about the man in the center? What about Ron DeSantis?
Exactly. Talk about a guy who seems to be in a free fall. And this is something where, so I've covered presidential debates when I used to work in New Hampshire, and I've covered tons of political debates. And it's really easy to figure out who the front runner is because that's the one that everybody attacks. And no one went after Ron DeSantis from what I've seen and from what I've heard. It really seems like even his opponents don't see him as much of an opposition. And I have to believe they have access to better polling and data than the rest of us do. This is a guy where, he really should have sat on his hands for 4 years. If Trump won, he could become the heir apparent. Instead, he's pissed off all the Trump people. He doesn't have the dynamism. He can't go toe-to-toe with Trump. He doesn't have any of the fire. And because he's sheltered himself, because he's, while the rest of Florida was open, Ron DeSantis was in quarantine when it came to dealing with the media. He cannot hang in the scrum because he has no chops. The guy has never had a glove laid on him. And so when it comes time to get down,
can't do it. Yeah.
I
mean, we talked about it.
I thought he was so invisible that Clint Eastwood would have put him on that chair that he had at the Republican convention.
You talk about a low bar. Mike Pence is like, well, I took the Constitution over. I mean, he wants to get patted on the back for obeying the law as a vice president of the United States. It's like, I didn't break the law like my crooked boss wanted me to. And he's trying to ride that wave as a hero. But I think.
Who? Anybody here think Pence has any?
A shot? No.
No, not just a shot. I mean, what kind of appeal does he have in a general election? I mean, the guy has no personality. I mean, he's
has no personality. He's just, you hate the guy when he starts talking. You can't stand him.
Well, listen, anybody, this really liberal institution known as Disney goes after DeSantis. If you're too much of a conservative for Disney, you got some issues. And I'd kind of like to see DeSantis as the nominee because I think he'd have a hard time winning Florida. I mean, he's anti-woman, he's anti-education, he's anti. Here's where Florida's where woke comes to die.
He's anti-goofy.
Actually, Florida's where a lot of old people.
Actually, he may be pro-goofy. Yeah. If you look at his profile.
Florida's where a lot of old people went to die because they stopped doing vaccinations. So,
somebody
people do go there for something. And it ain't
actually, I have 3 friends from my childhood. We're all became Trump supporters. Don't ask me to explain it. And they all lived in Florida. They all were anti-vaxxers, and none of them are with us anymore.
Wow.
It's tragic, truly tragic.
Yeah. It's too bad somebody didn't cosplay troll DeSantis at the debate by wearing a Mickey Mouse outfit. I mean, that would have just been ideal. But you mentioned Pence, and you're looking at what would be his base of support, and I think it's fair to say that he assumes that he would get the evangelical vote. But there was a recent study or survey that came out that said 71% of people trust Trump. In fact, they trust him more than they trust friends and family. Conservative media.
Have you seen their families?
What an insult to friends and family.
Yeah, or religious leaders. Religious leaders, only 42%. Conservative media figures 56%. Friends and family 63%, and Trump at 71%. He truly is the leper messiah.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. As Bill, as we're all, so puzzled by the fear, the respect, the embrace, and stuff like that. I mean, he was really a cult figure. I mean, we're really seeing live, a cult figure in our society, which we've probably, I don't really know if we've seen a cult figure of this level and this power, at least in our lifetime.
How about McCarthy?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
But that was the very beginning of our lifetime, and prior to a couple of you. But again, I want to go back to this issue because I think it's so important. We keep talking about Trump, but I really think the issue is, what do we do? How do we ever get back to a sense of normalcy when somewhere between a third and 40% of the country would still support him? And how, short of a civil war, what do we do? How do we get back to some sense of civility in this country and some sense of normalcy? I mean, all the rules are gone. The truth is what I say it is. And that's not limited to Trump. We talked about all these people who were in line to be the heir apparent to Trump. They're not confined by the truth. They're just not.
Yeah, Bill hits at something that's really the problem here. I mean, Trump is, to me, more of a symptom, but we have 40% of our fellow Americans who are truly unhappy, who are distrustful, who are angry, who are easily led and easily led astray. I mean, going back to McCarthy, when people finally got the courage to start speaking out against McCarthy, McCarthy started to crumble. People have been speaking out against Trump, and he's only getting stronger. He's like friggin' Godzilla hitting a power line. Obviously not a DTE power line because there's no energy going through those, but another kind of power line. But it's unbelievable. And one of the real problems we have is that there are no absolutes anymore. There's no
guardrails.
Starting point, right? Like, we can't all agree that in general the FBI does try and come to the truth. Well, if they're going after Trump, they don't. And if they don't find anything on Hunter Biden, they're not trying. It's not a matter of being right or putting facts behind it. It's a matter of finding somebody that has the truth and then figuring out how to cut the legs out from underneath them. And when we can't all start from the same agreement that the sky is blue and that it's Friday today in Detroit, I don't know how the hell we get anywhere, because those things are they're irrefutable.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
No, it's just like a fever that won't break. The 40% or 30%, whatever the numbers that are with Trump, they will not deviate no matter what the facts are. You can give them any set of facts, and they're not going to deviate from him. And
it's also becoming
that's a collective pathology in and of itself. It's fucking nuts.
But it's becoming institutionalized.
Yeah.
I mean, this is becoming. Look, one of the stories that out is this Berry County sheriff who says we're not enforcing laws that we disagree with, federal laws we disagree with. We don't have to do that. And you want to think about that. This guy should be removed. Every member of that organization that says we don't have to enforce federal laws we deem to be unconstitutional is violating their oath of office. Correct. Because they are law enforcement. They don't get to decide what's constitutional and what's not constitutional. That's for the courts. And these guys are violating their oath, and there's no consequences. They're holding seminars.
And the oath is to uphold the Constitution, right? The oath is to follow, adhere, and uphold the Constitution.
And remember,
the laws of the government, the laws. They're not doing it.
And remember, Bill, this is Sheriff Dar Leaf of Barry County who faces criminal charges for conspiracy to tamper with voting machines. So it looks like he's got a little bit of emboldenment, which, of course, then begs the question that are these prosecutions necessary to serve as a deterrent for people to act in a wayward way? So that brings about a pretty interesting question. But interesting name, Dar Leaf, up there. So Trump, of course, very famously said that he wasn't going to be in the first debate, and maybe he's not going to be in the next couple of debates. My question to you is he following the same kind of self-imposed suspension that Jim Harbaugh is in the start of the football season?
Then they're weak games, easy games. Doesn't have to coach. Yeah.
Boy, you know, I love University of Michigan setting the gold standard for universities to the west of Harvard, which is pretty much every university. They enter a deal to have a 4-game suspension. The NCAA indicates that's not enough. So what does Michigan say? Then we'll make it a 3-game suspension. I'm like, wait a minute. You know, I mean, the NCAA is a joke, but at the same time, you know, Jim Harbaugh wants everybody else screwed into the ground if they spit on the sidewalk, but he's covering up for a guy speeding with an unlicensed gun in his car. He's lying to investigators. And when it comes time for him to face the music the way he wants everybody else to face the music, he's got that headset on, and apparently there's a lot of white noise pouring into his head. That guy, see ya. What a bum.
Wasn't Steve Fishman representing the kid who had the gun?
Yeah, and he had a different. It was a very simple story according to Steve.
No,
I don't.
It wasn't Fishman. It was. I think it was. I'm drawing a blank. Another one of the Kilpatrick attorneys. Great lawyer.
Thomas.
No, from Ann Arbor. You know him.
Shea. John Shea.
John Shea. John Shea, I think, represented Mozzie Smith and got a very good outcome for Mozzie. In the same way, he got a very good outcome for Bernard Kilpatrick, and having sat through the Bernard Kilpatrick trial, but not the Mozzie Smith one, I'd say both of them were guilty of sin. So that's a real tribute to John as an attorney. But I digress.
Well, the good news in Ann Arbor, though, ML, is that the graduate student instructors are going back to work, even if Jim Harbaugh is not for the next 3 weeks. With that, let's break for a commercial.
All righty.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org, call 313-388-9799, or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Commercial.
It is that time.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Okay, I know that there's a week, so let's go. Joel, who's your Schmuck of the Week?
Okay, I'll give you first. My question is, how long did Trump practice that face in the mirror? You know, how long? Was it 20 minutes? Was it the angry scowl to define? I don't know.
All his life, his entire life.
For this moment. So Jenna Ellis is kind of my Schmuck of the Week. That one, I think she's an idiot, but that smiling mugshot is irritating as hell. But I like the fact that she's begging Trump and the PAC to give her money, and they apparently aren't doing so. So you know, good for you, Jenna Ellis. You're right where you should be.
Get indicted.
Whoops.
We should have had a bullhorn out there, Joel, when he was getting booked, saying, "You've always waited for this moment to arrive." Blackbird fly. All right, Bill.
My son, who always helps me get ready for these shows and does research, says I shouldn't do Schmuck of the Week. I should do Good News of the Week. And so I'm going to do that and then give you my Schmuck because I promised him I would. I just wanted to note, we didn't cover this because we spend so much time on these idiots who surround Trump. India landed a robotic probe on the dark side of the moon. This is an amazing story, and it tells you that great things are happening in this country, and that's the good news of the week, and we don't pay any attention to good news anymore. But my schmucks of the week, plural, are those 6 spineless bastards who said that they would support Trump even if convicted. A convicted felon is who these Republicans would support for president of the United States. They get a tie from me.
All right. By the way, Bill, I don't know if you got the update on that, the lunar probe. There is no dark side of the moon. As a matter of fact, it's all dark.
Boy, that's what makes me think.
There you go. ML.
You're ruining part of my childhood by saying there is no dark side of the moon.
Tucker Carlson, what a despicable human being this guy is. I mean, he, hey, good for him that he has this one-on-one with Trump. That's the kind of gift that anybody in the media would be hard pressed to turn down. But his questioning, and again, I didn't watch it because the only thing I'd like to see Tucker Carlson do is flatline, but is talk about these leading questions like, are we going to have violence? Does this mean there's a civil war? Are people going to die? Which in a lot of minds turns around to, it's time for us to kill some people. His ego, his irresponsibility, his complete and utter lack of decency and humanity from a guy who's always had more than anybody else and should be the happiest person on the world, on the face of the earth. His need for attention and for sycophancy makes the person he was interviewing pale in comparison. And he hates Trump and has said as much. Right. This is the most duplicitous, steaming pile of human dog shit ever. Tucker Carlson, now and until the sun crashes into whatever side of the moon is light, dark, plaid, whatever, you're my schmuck of the week. And I wish you would come to Michigan. I think he is going to be here soon, but I would love to cross paths with him because I've also heard him say that if somebody came into my house, I'd have a gun and I'd try and kill him. Tucker, you and me on the street, I guarantee you, the only thing that's going to happen is a puddle on top of your loafers.
Wow. I haven't heard.
Driving back. Come by anytime. I'll be here all week.
Drop that mic. That was good.
ML, I find your reference to trans species excrement disturbing, but okay. Allan, who's your?
All right. I would say, but no. I have two things. One, the whole crowd, the debate stage, they talk about fentanyl. They talk about going after the cartel. They don't say one word about the customer base, the customer demand in the U.S., the need for more treatment centers, the need for better education of just, they forget we're the customers here. We're demanding it. We're keeping the cartels alive. They ignore that. They do what's been done, the war on drugs, which has been a failure from the beginning. And not for lack of trying. So that's one. And the other is Nikki Haley. Afterwards, she was interviewed after the debate with Sean Hannity, who was sucking up to every candidate. And she just goes on that, yes, this is a political, talking about the Trump indictments and stuff. It's all political and stuff like that, which is just, the party wants to be the party of law and order. And here's a guy who tried to overthrow the election, the guy who got us. We would all be in prison just on the document case for getting a subpoena, hiding stuff, trying to destroy evidence. It would have been a slam dunk. They talk about a two-party system. It's bullshit. It is a two-tier system for justice. He's still out and he's running for president. So anyways.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know any of those 8 who necessarily could be ineligible for Schmuck of the Week. Okay, so my Schmuck of the Week is CNN, and perhaps more specifically Brianna Keeler. While there was a live report from the crash site which supposedly took the life of Wagner Group boss Yevgeny Prigozhin, they decided to interrupt this poor reporter and say, we got to cut you off because we have to go to a live shot of an aerial view of an SUV pulling up to the Fulton County Jail and Rudy Giuliani popping out of it to go get booked and processed. The fact that they decided to steer away from something real time, which has, of course, geopolitical consequences, just to see Rudy going into the building without making a statement, to go do that.
It's a great drop. I love that.
It's like drink bingo. To go ahead and get processed with nothing else shows you why the accusations that Americans are very parochial about what's happening in the rest of the world. Like, apropos, Bill, you saying about the Indian South Pole lunar landing makes CNN one of my schmucks. The other one, though, this just came off the press, has to be Carlos Santana, who apparently at a concert clip said that transgender people should stay in the closet, or to be more accurate, los transgéneros debe permanecer en el armario. Because, of course, we need to go ahead and use more than one language here on the show. I don't know why old Carlos decided to jump into the mix of this during one of his concerts, but he said it. Apparently, though, he has apologized for his insensitive comments about the trans community in a statement that was given to Billboard, saying, "I realize that what I said hurt people, and that was not my intent." I'm not sure
what was his intent.
Exactly. So, Carlos Santana, I don't think you were winning on this one. You're my second schmuck of the week. Well, listen, thank you for yet another great rootin' tootin' show with a lot discussed, with a fairly minimal amount of profanity, much to the chagrin of, well, everybody. But thank you, ML Elrick. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Joel Sklar. And, of course, thank you, Allan Lengel, with the last word.
Drive home safely.
And seriously,